Most creepy place you have physically been in. Specific buildings. Waverly Hills Sanatorium. If ghosts exists, or whatever we call spirits, or hauntings, or so on, are real, this is full of ghosts. Half want to pass on. It's not even that it feels demonic or anything. It's just a foci of human suffering that's probably filled with that certain kind of 20th century ghost that people used to feel in old bars down south, and in every old mansion and hotel in the country. Louisville is a good city for X stuff, but its crown jewel is still creepy. Regions. Blue River Reservoir, Oregon. I was fine, but I had a buddy get spooked because he thought he saw someone walk into a tree while he spent the night there while the lake was drained, and in that same night, he heard people giggling. I'm ignorant of any legends about the place, and there's not much about it other than it's in the middle of Oregon, and I'm not an Oregon local. But having taken a trip out there, it does have an element to it I'm not familiar with elsewhere. Hands down, creepiest place I've been to is Arco, Idaho. My parents and I were road tripping one summer and stopped in town to get something to eat. Locals were super passive-aggressive and unwelcoming. Had a bad vibe. Then, as we left, I saw the 666 submarine mast. Place was so creepy. Glad to get out of there. Bunker in Kauai. Bunch of anti-air gun and missile operators lived in here during the Gulf War. Nobody there knew which side they were even on, whether they were defenders or Iraqis in an emplacement put in after the invasion. But it does not matter now. Either way, they're dead. Place shot all to hell. Explosives tore holes here and there. Thinking of people in that fucking metal cavern in the heat of Kauai, dying like dogs. It was creepy as fuck. Spookiest building? St. James Hotel, Cimarron, New Mexico. I heard people walking up and down my hall all night, despite me being the only person in that hallway. Most of the rooms aren't actually for rent. Most are set up like a museum exhibit. So, each hall only has 1 or 2 rooms with guests. I was downstairs in a hall with only one room open, which was mine. The place really feels like you went back in time. I was with a girl, and she started complaining about feeling weird. I ended up rushing her to the hospital at midnight because she started pissing blood. I don't know if that was related, but it was fucked up. The restaurant is 10 out of 10 though. If you ever get an opportunity, go there. Spookiest region? Texas and Mexico border. That place is fucked, and I am thankful to not be down there anymore. I can list off at least 10 X-related things that happened to me or people I knew down there, off the top of my head, to which he then does not go to list off 10 X-related things that happened to him or people that he knew down there. The land between Provo, Utah, down to St. George, Utah. It was my first time in the state coming from New York for a trip, and found most of Utah to be a little off, but this stretch was the most off. It was literally all just empty land, with occasional patches of blackened, burnt-out trees and shrubs. Something about that stretch just really weirded me out. Like, I wouldn't want to be around at night if the car broke down. I've been to all sorts of other desolate areas. Wyoming, Montana, Nevada, Arizona, etc. And those felt normal. That area of Utah just felt spooky. Place? I once slept at a hotel that used to be a train station in Missouri. Depot Inn and Suites. It had a train museum inside of it. Got spooked late at night by the sight of what I can only describe as a shadow person with a flat appearance and a square head. Maybe a hat? They were sitting in the plush lounge chair next to the bed. I don't think it has a reputation for being haunted, or would even want to garner one, but I am partially convinced that I saw the spirit of a dead hobo or something stranger. It's a nice hotel, it just happened to be the only place that I can say that I've seen a shadow person in. Region. Gotta admit, it's a tie between Vegas and Orlando. My mom has a cleaning business. She mostly does domestic jobs, but occasionally, she gets end-of-tenancy cleans. When she first started out, she would take my siblings and I to go help her because the end of tenancy cleans were usually pretty big jobs. We got called to do this house that wasn't in her normal area, but it was good money, so she went to do it. When we got there, even from the outside, the house just did not look right. It was the only house on the entire street that still had single-panel windows. It looked run down pretty badly. When we unlocked the door, we were hit with this stench, unlike anything else we'd ever smelled. I immediately felt uneasy and didn't really want to go in. We had to go survey the house, see how many rooms needed cleaning, and how long it would take. But every room we went in had cobwebs that stuck out of the corners of the room, around 3 to 4 feet. So, in the smaller rooms, you couldn't move for cobwebs. The whole house was filled with dead blue bottle flies. You know, the really big ones. They were everywhere. I was freaking out, and so was my sister. The house did not feel haunted, it felt traumatized, like it had seen something horrible. We went upstairs and I got confirmation that something weird had gone on. One of the upstairs bedrooms had no carpet, and a big brown stain on the concrete that was left. Somebody had died on that spot. I shouted for my mom and sister to have a look, but then my sister noticed something more alarming. The door of the room with the blood stain was covered in duct tape. This room had obviously been sealed shut from the outside. We left that room and went to the bedroom opposite, and the walls were covered in shit and dog hair. There was no sign of duct tape on that door. I left that room and noticed the shit stains and dog hair running across the landing too. It looked like a very large dog had been allowed free reign of the house, while somebody had potentially been trapped in a room, alone. When we looked at the kitchen, all the cabinets were falling off of the wall, and they were clearly from the 70s when the house was first built. This kitchen was honestly a disgrace. I looked the history of the house up, and it had been a rental property from when it was purchased. That means, since 1972, no maintenance work had been done on the house. There was a huge bag of mail, and we took a look. I searched the name of the tenant and local obituaries, and nothing showed up. This was an old man living alone in that house. If he had let the house deteriorate to the level that it had, you really would have thought the landlord would have taken legal action. To this day, I am 100% sure that the landlord was torturing his tenant and siphoning off the old guy's pension. There is no record of this man's death at all, but there was obvious dead person damage. The house felt like it was sad at what it had witnessed. I don't feel like the old man was haunting the place, but I feel like he came to a terrible fate that never got reported. I never forgot that house. I don't think I'll ever be in a place like it again. I stopped in a small town like that in Wales. Very unfriendly shopkeepers that clearly didn't want us there, and talked to each other in Welsh the whole time. We were obviously English, so they rightly assumed we wouldn't understand their conversation. And when we went to a local cafe, it was just like a scene from a western where everyone in the saloon stops talking and stares at the newcomer. If there had been a piano playing, it would have stopped. We sat down and looked over the menu and could still feel everyone's eyes on us. So we got up and left pretty quickly. It was a very dull, overcast day, so maybe they were just hoping for no tourists that day. But it was overall a very creepy experience, like we'd stumbled into a town from a Lovecraft story. I'm going to start off with something I was told only yesterday. FYI, I shared a story a while back about a woman I work with. This new story is related to her as well. I work with an older Chinese woman. Rachel's her name. Her husband passed away very suddenly this year. He was literally fit as a fiddle and just dropped dead one afternoon. Rachel took time off to deal with the funeral and to grieve. She returned to work, having clearly been aged by the whole experience, but otherwise, she seemed normal. Fast forward. One very slow night, Rachel and I are working together. She brings up her husband for the first time since his passing. She makes a curious statement. I haven't even had any dreams about him. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to notice. And about a week later, Rachel tells me, I actually finally had a dream about my husband. This was more or less how she told it to me. He and I were both in some type of huge space, like an airport, and he was rushing, like he had somewhere to be. I'm following after him, crying. I ask him, "Why haven't you come to see me? Why haven't you let me know that you're okay? I've missed you." Her husband stops to explain to her, "I have been back. I've been back numerous times to see you, but you never see me. And now I have to go." This was another slow late night at work, and Rachel's story kind of gave me chills. It seemed like an obvious message. I considered the idea that her husband had been lingering between this life and the next, trying to leave a message with Rachel, but she had failed to notice. I don't mention this to her. Several months pass. This is yesterday now. We've just had a little company Christmas lunch, and everyone's walking around chatting. I'm speaking to this one coworker of mine, Kate. I don't see her often because she works mornings, but we've always gotten along really well, and we haven't seen each other in a while, so we're having a gab fest. Kate is older, quick-witted, and incredibly blunt. For some reason, the topic of Rachel's husband comes up, and Kate says that she believes the spirit of the dead man is following Rachel around. Just like that, she tells me, and I ask her what she means. Kate proceeds to share with me a couple of weird anecdotes. Real quick about Kate. She's been working at this job for over 10 years. She knew Rachel's husband. After he died, she told me he appeared to her in a dream. In the dream, he seemed to be urgently saying something to her, but the words came out muted. Kate said she had this dream about a month later after the guy passed, which would have been a few weeks before Rachel's dream. She follows this up by relating a separate eerie experience. Apparently, one early morning, Kate came into the shop to prepare everything for the day. It was just her and another older woman, Helen. Kate and Helen were working silently when Rachel showed up unexpectedly. Rachel said that she was having a get-together for some family that morning, and began preparing some sandwiches to go. When she finished, she asked Kate to lock up after her. This was an hour before opening, so Kate locked up tight. And this is important. The front doors at the shop lock in 4 different places. At the head jamb, where the top of the door meets the frame, at the bottom, the threshold, and 2 regular deadbolts. Kate had just locked the doors up completely and is returning to the kitchen when she hears a series of loud snaps, followed by a boom. She rushes out of the kitchen, where she runs into a terrified Helen. The old lady is white as a sheet, and both front doors are wide open. Kate asks Helen what happened. Helen doesn't know. She says she was returning from the bathroom when she heard what sounded like the door locks coming undone. Then, the doors flew open. Kate is telling me this. She describes standing with Helen in the doorway, watching Rachel's car disappearing down the road. She says she got an eerie feeling. She remembered her dream, became convinced that Rachel's husband was pursuing Rachel as she left the shop. And that's it. I know there's no real payoff to this story, but I found all of these little coincidences very strange. My mom grew up in the village that I grew up in. She used to live in a house near the railway. When her and her sisters were young, they would sometimes play near the train tracks. They used to sometimes play with a little boy there. They all claim he dressed strange, like he was from the Victorian era. They move out a few years later to live on a farm. Fast forward 20 or so years, new neighbors move in. Their son becomes best friends with my brother. His grandma lives in the house my mom grew up in. After playing at this grandma's house, he tells mom and my brother about the new friend he made near the railway tracks. This kid was young, but he dressed weird, like he was from the olden days. My brother didn't think anything of it. He was too young to be told about spooky stories. My mom freaked because the 4-year-old next-door neighbor just described the same ghost that she saw when she was a kid. Merry Christmas, X. I've started a journal of strange things I've seen or heard since I moved out into a small town in the middle of the desert in Arizona. Be me. 4 months ago, girlfriend wants to go for a night walk in the desert behind the house. Sounds fun at PNG. Get usual kit for desert walks. Pack stuffed water, toilet paper and snacks, pistol in my waistband, and a brush axe for opening up paths through washes. Make our way out into the desert. Little to no moonlight, but we have flashlights, so it's cool. Cross a wash using a previously cut hole. Get into opening between two washes. Wandering along and idly chatting as we approach the next bit of foliage. Hear human voices to our front, slightly muffled by the wash. What the fuck, that wave? I shut my light off and we stand idly, listening. Voices sound like they were agitated. Couldn't make out anything they were saying. About 20 minutes pass, and we don't hear the voices for a while. Turn back and cut through into the first wash. We get into the middle, and we hear the voices again. They sounded like they were at the area that we just came from. Shut off light and stand idly, free hand resting on pistol in my waistband. A few moments later, that JPEG. I pull my pistol from my waistband and check the chamber. I'm usually carrying red, but it never hurts to check. Motion for my girlfriend to take the lead, since the voices sound like they're behind us. Cross the open desert back to our house and scoot inside, locking up everything behind us. This was probably the first time I'd heard human-sounding voices out there. And considering that the majority of the people who live out there are old retired folks, I doubt they were out hunting us in the night. This one happened probably 2 or 3 weeks following the previous post. Be me, sitting at home on a Wednesday night, taking a break from drinking and THC. Girlfriend has been really getting to spiritualist type stuff, so she's always going out into the desert to meditate and collect plants and stuff. On this occasion, she opted to go out not long before sunset and take her time out there. Not that it bothered me. Darkness sets in around 7:30 p.m. Text her a couple of times, make sure she's doing okay. She keeps up and tells me she'll start walking back soon, so I stay occupied with YouTube for a while, and when I check my phone, it's 8:40 p.m. Text her. Nothing. Wait a few minutes. See if she's in the middle of posting on social media or talking to someone on the phone. After around 10 minutes or so, I start prepping to go out into the brush. I'm not assuming the worst, but I'd rather get out there in the offhand chance that she sustained an injury or something. Cross the 2 washes, start climbing a hill up onto a little plateau. As I'm walking uphill, can notice a light shifting around in the distance, along with the low drone of an ATV motor. It's to the southeast, close enough to see and hear, but at a distance that I wasn't too concerned about. Get to the crest of this small hill, see a strange light in the sky as well. Looked vaguely like a shooting star, but in slow motion, with a big trail behind it. It was super bright. Watch this for a few seconds before my phone starts vibrating in my pocket. Girlfriend calling me back. Pick up and ask where she's at. Find out we passed each other. Mention the light in the sky to her. She says she sees it also. Asks me to try to record it if I can, since my phone camera is better. Attempt to record, but the distance to the object, and with how dark it was, it came out looking crappy. We agree to meet up at the house. Says she's done for the night. Start making my way back, keeping my head on a swivel to see if I can spot girlfriend. Get into wash. Hear human voices calling out. Stop. Turn off light. And wait. Still can't make out any words. Sounds like mindless hooting. Assume it's just rednecks out joyriding around. Stick head out from wash. See the ATV light from earlier just stopped as the hooting continues. Notice the sound isn't coming from the same direction as the ATV. In fact, it's way off. Voices stop, and then the ATV putters along in the direction that the voices were coming from. What? .mb4. Wait a few moments before turning light back on and starting to wander back towards the house. Get to open stretch of desert between my house and the first wash. As I'm walking, I hear this very sudden shrill sound, almost as if I got hit with sudden tinnitus. Freeze. Try to figure out what the fuck that just was. It goes as quickly as it came. Continue walking along. Hear that noise again a couple of times as I trudged at 200 to 300 feet to my fence. Get back in the yard. Wait around for girlfriend. Still hearing that weird sound. Feeling a little uncomfortable. Get a call from girlfriend. She's just gotten out of the first wash. Stay on the phone with her, asking if she's heard the noises. Says she heard the hooting kind of sound, but she hasn't heard the other one. We talk as she makes her way. Apparently she'd taken another route through the wash and had a longer walk than I did. See her phone light in the distance and start to feel relief. Hear the tinnitus sound again, but girlfriend goes, "What the fuck?" over the phone. She heard it too. Said it sounded like it was right in front of her. Fuck that tiff. Watch as she picks up her pace. I put my hand on my pistol. She gets to the fence, and I help her in before we both nope into the house. As we hit the steps, we hear the sound again, and that only gets us inside quicker. We get inside and lock up. We're both very worked up for some reason. Can't quite explain it. I haven't heard that sound except for 2 other times, and it was never exactly the same. After this, things quieted down, except the occasional hearing of human voices in the desert at night. But still, I was assuming it was people just going out and partying in the desert. Continuing with entries, going to condense the next 2 the best I can since they're pretty short overall. Be me, 6 days ago. Get off of work, head inside and enjoy my downtime. Little bit agitated after a fucked commute. Starting to drink some beers. Head outside for a smoke. Sun is still pretty high in the sky, so no big deal. Make note of how cloudy it is, since later I'll probably need a light to navigate back to my smoking spot. A few hours later, .wmv. It's dark now, probably 7 p.m. Still feeling a good buzz from drinking beers throughout the afternoon. Plop down into my yard chair and light up a cigarette and take out phone. Start messaging friend about stuff. Mention how dark it is tonight. Note, I'd previously told this friend about the other stuff and hearing the voices in the desert. Mention that it's probably going to happen again. Think I'll try to get a recording. Switch over to doom scrolling as I'm taking drags of my smoke. Hear a faint call from the desert. Again, sounds like the kind of hooting a redneck type would do at a tailgate or something. Coyotes in the distance and dogs in my neighborhood start going ballistic. Even the wandering mule starts losing its shit. Quickly switch over to camera and start recording a video. Capture a few seconds of the animals going crazy. And then, silence. Stop recording. Go back to messaging friend. Mention that I heard the voice again. Starting to attribute this to how dark it is. Go to take a photo of the moon to show how dim it is. Heavy steps in the brush directly across the fence. Startle the fuck out of me. It's there, and then it's gone. It sounded like something big. Fear.png. Sitting absolutely still with at least half a cigarette left, and my eyes are darting around in the darkness, trying to spot something. All is silent. Stand up, taking a last greedy drag from my smoke before scuffing it out, and throwing the butt away. Go inside, grab handgun, and light. Go back outside, sporting light and handgun. Hold up light and scan the area past a fence, holding my pistol at a low ready. Don't see anything. I sigh with relief and lower my light. Go to turn back to the house. Hear a fucked up sound I can't quite describe. Almost sounded like a human, but making a strange animal call. Whip light back around. I'm shaking, expecting to see some sort of abomination. Sector clear.wave. Dip back into the house. Don't go back out there for my last smoke before bed. 5 days later, or yesterday. Same routine as previous entry. Get home, grab beer, and relax. Been quiet since last entry. The clouds have let up, and there's plenty of moonlight. Go out for a smoke as I'm getting into the holiday spirit with beer. It's around sunset. There's still plenty of light in the sky. Animals all around me are making sounds. Chickens going ballistic, cows wailing in the distance, and neighborhood dogs just losing their shit. Hear coyotes howling far off. Assuming it's the yotes stirring shit up, I feel a twinge of discomfort though. Usual smoking routine, doom scroll, develop lung cancer slowly, rinse and repeat. Coming to end of cigarette and hear a very short, high-pitched noise. Look around, confused. After a few seconds, I distinctly hear what sounds like the start of a buck or an elk call, but instead of the expected wailing call, it's a long, high-pitched sound. Everything is silent after the noise dies down. Silence breaks, with animals going crazy again. Confused, but not quite freaked out, I snub out smoke and head inside. I end up forgetting about it after a little while. Go back outside for a smoke, and it's dark now. Very peaceful this time. Only distinct sound is the sounds of the highway. Light up, sit back, and enjoy the atmosphere. Faint moonlight, the sounds of the rural highway, a light breeze, and the smells of a desert after a good rain. Absolutely cozy.wmv. Enjoying the cool and peaceful first night of a 3-day weekend. Take out phone to message friend. We idly chat about the holidays and how things are going. As I'm in the middle of a message, the highway goes silent. There's no other sounds. It's entirely silent all around me. Suddenly, feel very uncomfortable. Feels like my head is slightly vibrating as a result of the silence. It feels like it's getting to be too much. Almost opt to drop smoke and run inside. Mama ain't raised no bitch.mp3. Stubbornly continue to take drags at my smoke. World is eerily silent. Can only hear the faint crackles of my cigarette whenever I take a drag. And my own breathing. Finish cigarette and quickly go to head inside. I get 3 steps from the porch and hear the sound just suddenly come back from the highway, along with some distant animal sounds. What the actual fuck? Go inside and pound some beers before starting to recount the previous events. Still not entirely sure how to properly explain any of this. I'm not sure if this fits your thread, but last night I dreamed with Queen Elizabeth. Before that, I never cared about her or that island. I was only aware of the reptilian meme. Dreaming unrelated things. Find myself in this building. I didn't explore much, but there was a solar with 2 doors and a second floor. Enter the solar by way of one of the rooms. The queen is there. She's sleeping on her side in a stone bench. I can see that she has her eyes closed. She opens them in a very unnatural way and looks at me. "Sorry for waking you up, Your Majesty. Why don't you accompany me?" "Sure, let me go for a book." I'm not completely sure why I said that, but my idea for some reason was to pass the time with it while I was with her. Dream logic, I guess, but I was feeling uneasy. I go to the other room, which is in the opposite direction, but I don't pass by the solar. I make a roundabout way through the other rooms. I'm looking for a Bible. I'm not sure why. The old hag suddenly opens the door that goes to the solar, but she's in a wheelchair. "Why don't we read the Bible?" I suggest. She does not like that. Her face sours, and I can see canines, like a vampire. I spot a Bible and a table close to the door, but it's too close to her. I get the feeling that she could lunge at me, so I stay put. I start spouting random words of the Bible, and the name of the Father and the Christ. I'm not really a believer, but she starts screaming in pain. Wake up. First thought in my head, I should have bashed that fucking bitch's skull with that Bible. Have a feeling, so I get up and patrol the house. Found the deck door open, and I'm sure I left it closed. Anyways, I don't really feel fear or anything. You should not fear friend entities. They are beneath us.